Hey everyone, welcome back. Today's game was played recently in the Gibraltar Masters. It's a game played between Vladislav Artemiev and Hikaru Nakamura. So Artemiev is only 20 years old and already rated just over 2700. Let's see how he does in this game with the white pieces against Nakamura. So Artemiev opens with knight f3, knight to f6. From Nakamura we have g3, d5, bishop g2 going for the king's Indian attack. Nakamura plays e6, castles from white, bishop e7, c4 going for the Catalan, castles from Nakamura, b3 preparing a double bishop fianchetto, c5, bishop to b2, knight c6, e3, we have b6, black prepares the fianchetto as well, knight c3, d takes c4, b takes c4, bishop to b7, queen e2, rook c8, rook a to d1, so potentially preparing to push d4, queen c7 from Nakamura, stepping out of this rook's line, knight to e1 from Artemiev, so with the intention of going f4. So here d4 seems natural, just trying to gain the center, but this doesn't quite work, as after c takes d4, e takes d4, knight a5, this pawn in c4 is a bit weak. So here knight to e1 from Artemiev. And Nakamura plays knight back to e8. This is actually the novelty in the position. So what's the point behind this move? After Artemiev played f4, Hikaru played knight d6, covering some important squares such as b5 and f5. Black also makes room for the bishop to come to f6 where it can challenge the long diagonal. So Artemiev played knight back to f3. Hikaru plays a6, getting ready to expand with b5. So Artemiev stops that with a4 and f5 from Hikaru. So maybe trying to stop white from building up the center with maybe d3 and e4, but this has the drawback of weakening the e6 pawn. Artemiev plays d3. So this gives the queen access to the queen side in some lines. We have bishop to f6 and Artemiev plays h3, preparing to expand on the king side. So other ideas for white are to go rook to b1, where white is preparing to play knight a2. And if bishop takes b2, queen takes b2, white would have some pressure on the b6 pawn. So white can also play knight to a2 with the same intention, just with a different move order. But here Artemiev decides on h3. Knight b4 from Nakamura just to block any potential pressure down the b file. Artemiev goes g4. So if black doesn't do anything, and let's say he plays something like rook c to d8, then white carries on with g5. With bishop to e7, then h4, intending h5. If black tries g6, white is going to push h5 anyway. And white has a pretty nice initiative. This dark square bishop is incredibly strong as it is unopposed on the long diagonal. So here if g takes h5, white also has ideas like going bishop a1 and queen b2, forming a nice queen-bishop battery. So here after g4, Nakamura played g6, just allowing the bishop to drop back to g7. Artemiev now plays e4, threatening to go e5. Black can respond by retreating one of the minor pieces, say knight f7 or bishop g7, but instead Nakamura took the pawn. F takes e4, trying to complicate the game, and also weakening his e6 pawn. So here Artemiev took back. The computer actually recommends bishop d4 check. But after king h2, black is going to have to part with this important dark square bishop. If he tries to retreat the bishop, say bishop g7, well, this only wastes a tempo. White goes knight g5, looking at the weakness on e6, and this gives white a nice initiative. something like this could happen. Queen e7, e5, knight f7, but here knight c to e4. So also looking at this very juicy d6 square. So in this position, Nakamura tried knight takes e4. Understandably, he didn't want to part with the dark square bishop. That was taken. We have bishop takes b2, and instead of taking the bishop on b2, Artemiev plays knight e to g5, highlighting the weakness on e6. Note that the queen also attacks the pawn, so black can't really defend it. White is threatening stuff like, after queen takes e6, rook coming down to d7. Nakamura's bishop is also hanging, so here he's kind of forced to play bishop takes f3. And then bishop d4 check. King h1, and then rook c to e8. So that was taken, but now at least the knight is pinned. Queen c6 attacking the pinned knight. Here Artemiev goes f5, cementing his beautiful knight on e6. So it seems that the complications have only favored Artemiev. So Nakamura doesn't really want to take this pawn because that would only give white the g file to work with. If Nakamura tries something like rook f7, then rook d to f1, with the idea of taking on g6. So if black waits, for example, if he plays queen d6, then f takes g6, rook takes f3, queen takes f3, the threat is now queen to f7. So if rook takes e6, then you can play queen f7 check, and queen takes h7 mate. So here queen takes e6 is kind of forced, but here queen f7 check. This would result in a winning endgame for white, being up the exchange. So after rook d to f1, black kind of has to play the move rook f to e7, and then white can just improve his position, rook f4, attacking the queen, and after queen d7, rook to e4, and this seems very pleasant for white. So after f5, Nakamura decided to just take the pawn. Queen takes a4. We have f takes g6. Rook takes f3. So here queen takes f3 is winning, but Artemiev plays the move g takes h7 check, which is even stronger, completely opening up the black king. So king h8 from Nakamura. If king takes h7, then queen to e4 check, king h8, then you take on f3, now threatening rook takes d4, followed by queen f6 check, and then queen g7 mate. So if rook takes e6, then there's queen f8 check, king h7, and here rook f1, bringing another piece into the attack. And this is going to be fatal. If bishop g7, queen f5 check, rook g6, bishop e4, white is completely winning in this position. Queen e8, queen h5 check, take on g6, and here rook f7 check wins the queen. So king h8 from Nakamura, bishop takes f3. So here queen takes f3 could have been played with the same idea we have just seen, that if after rook takes e6, queen f8 check, king takes h7, then you bring the rook over to f1. So this would have been stronger, but instead bishop takes f3, which kind of lets black back into the game. So here black could have played knight to d3, threatening knight f2 check, but also stopping white from playing rook takes d4. So knight d3 definitely not an easy move to find. If rook takes d3, then queen takes c4, pinning the rook and also attacking the pinned knight. And black is actually fine here. If queen takes d3, then black goes rook takes e6. Black is of course still worse in this position, but at least he is still surviving. But after bishop takes f3, Nakamura plays knight c6, trying to deal with the threat of rook takes d4. But unfortunately, this loses to knight takes c5. In fact, Nakamura resigned in this position. Black is losing material. A possible continuation would be rook takes e2, knight takes queen, rook to c2. Here bishop takes c6 wins. But there is the problem of this knight getting trapped. Although this is still completely winning for white, as this pawn is so close to the promotion square. Also, black has to be careful of checks on the back rank. But here, after rook c2, c5 is even stronger. So this is even cleaner, as the knight can now escape to the b6 square. So Artemiev hands Nakamura his first classical defeat in 10 years in Gibraltar, and he is currently among the co-leaders of the tournament after his draw with Levon Aronian. So that is all for this video. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a great day.